QHHT stands for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, which is a technique that was developed 50 years ago by Dolores Cannon. She used to do normal hypnotherapy, like traditional hypnosis, 50 years ago, and a little bit of her story is that her husband, they both have passed away. Her husband used to work in the military, in a military base. They were doing hypnosis to help, the soldiers cope with like stress and
of course,
PTSD.
Stress,
Yeah, like something that traditional.
Basically, everything was psychological.
Yeah, it was more psychologically based.
And physiological at the time.
At the time,
of course.
There was an accident that happened to her husband, and she already started like discovering that she could go deeper into the sessions and bring in higher information and awareness, and of course
on the conscious level.
And the conscious
level. On a physiological level, she was discovering she could heal bones through hypnosis.
Yeah, because her husband had this accident.
Exactly.
And it was basically they said he was gonna die, and he has basically pretty much all of his body injured, broken. It will take him so long to heal, and so of course it's somebody she loves, so she wanted to help him, and so she used her technique to help him overcome this situation that he was in, and successfully discovered that bones can be healed, that muscles can be healed, like that basically the doctors were giving her no hope. They were saying he's just not gonna make it, like he's just not gonna happen, and something inside of her was like, I know I can change this. I know this is not true. Like she didn't feel that was true, and she followed that, and so she helped him heal. 50 years ago, this was very like on the taboo side, especially with military involved. Of course, they did not want any of this to be out in the surface, and she had to put this practice out of the field for like maybe at least 10 years or something like that. Her husband passed, her children grew up, and she began incorporating back the QHHT sessions in a more professional way. And that's what formed her career path up to the time that she passed, and she built a beautiful legacy. She used to travel all over the world. She had a lineup of people that wanted to see her all over the world that she just could not like fill up because there was so much sort of like demand for it. So she did a lot of classes. There is the school and in the United States where I studied, and so there is a very, very efficient, it's a 50-year developed, very precise, very efficient technique, all the steps, everything, all the methodologies.
Very scientific.
It's almost very scientific, in a sense, and it's very, very, very efficient to work on all, like pretty much like all physical cases, that even cancer, even like terminal HIV, anything that has been said by the medical world that is impossible to heal, it's discovered that it's actually possible by the body to heal. Something that we always want to keep in mind with the healing is like the person also needs to, or there is like the desire to heal, because let's remember that it's a technique that works with the higher consciousness, and that the person is agreeing to some level to bring that healing to themselves.
It's the person that authorized this reprogramming to be done, because they're the one with the access to their own operating system, so to speak. And how the QHHT works is pretty simple. It's just you're reactivating yourself, some biophoton reprogramming. So what you do is you're launching the program from your higher self, and you communicate to your cells the same way we would do through homeopathy or electrostimulation or any other techniques that already exist. And the difference with the QHHT is they do it in one session, what would take like so many sessions to do. Where did I jump in with that is studying the actual biological mechanism of QHHT, because because when I heard that hypnosis technique could basically heal bones, I was like right away interested, because I knew how the bones used to heal themselves. I know the process of osteoblast, osteoclast, but I know it takes a lot of time. And I say, you know, they do it instant. Or how instant? Even in a few weeks. And I say, but because I say, you know, if you do this and you get like overgrowth of the bone, you also get a bunch of different problems. How do you even control that? And there were no problem with controlling actually those effects, because it was not based on the drug that you give and then you lose control over, and then you get all those secondary effects. So that's what I liked about it, is like the mechanism that were biological were very understandable, but the way they were being put into practice, they were also more than very safe. It was just the healing that was giving is just what was needed when the healing was reached, and that's the big part of it. Is like the people have to allow that same healing, but nevertheless is something that I have observed again in many other therapy, because you have the same with homeopathies. The people they're not able to receive it. Basically, they don't get the information. They don't get the benefit of it. So that's mostly how it was interpreted, and many other cases that they were already solved, like the epilepsy or the anxiety crisis.
Just a little bit of a background, so that you have in as a biochemist, and also in pharmacology, and with ethnobotany. So something that I really love about the dynamic is that people can come and have a QHHT session, and then they can also have like a bio reading feedback, or if there is something that they want to understand that happens more on the biological level, or so that then you can give them that piece of information so that they can integrate it. So it's not just like metaphysical woo-woo that's, you know, it's like up in the air and I just don't know exactly how it happened. Like, we actually have the fundamental understanding of ourselves, of our consciousness, of our body. It's backed up by even neuroscience these days, which also prove that the healing through the
everything
theta,
we have the way to track our therapy and verify
the therapies, which is really like it brings
and their efficiency.
Brings a really good understanding.
You want to talk about the bioreading?
Yeah, let's share a little bit about that, since we're like...
Sure. Let's talk about the bioreading. Yes. Bioreading are pretty straightforward. It's a very simple, as well as simple, very perfect mapping of all our biological and metabolical function. And the way this is given, it's usually an imprint of the infrared. At least this is how it works. It can be an imprint of your electromagnetic field as well, which they are kind of both electromagnetic radiation. And how this is interpreted is just by scanning a different frequency.
But it's done through the hand, like basically.
In our case, we do it through the infrared that is emitted by the head, because basically what is emitted through our body has the imprint of everything that happened inside. It's like an echo, molecular echo, and resonance echo of everything that we experience within. And when this is get emitted by the heat of our own body, it has a radiation which is infrared radiation, and when we scan that radiation, and of course with a computer program, by specific resonance section, we can evaluate every biological function of the body, or at least every function that we scan for. So in our case, we scan in the general cases over 40 different general functions, which can be liver, lung, kidney, gallbladder, and every different part, as much as endocrine to collagen. We scan everything of the body and we get that perfect bioimage. And most of the time what it gives us is consciousness to the client of his own health, actually. So what's work with him, what doesn't, what does he do, his practice, if his diet is proper for him. So basically you get like the proper biological image on where you are, which your own body is already an expression on or who you are inside. So it's a way to prevent disease in a way that sometimes when we get sick and there is a reason why we did, it's kind of the physical way to show it, and for people to go through this and go through the healing process and then go to healing those emotions. And the way of doing it with the bioscanner resonance is that we can see the tendency we already have physiologically, what's the little sign our body is showing and what they're going toward the future, and we can basically do the work in advance. So it's not so hard and we are actually sick, but it will be once again the same type of work, and it's a work that we need to allow ourselves to do, really. Like we are the one that need to learn about ourselves and like, what do I do that has this effect, and do I want to change that, and what are the causes of that?
It's very empowering because it shifts from the ideas of like that we have to, or that we need to get this from somebody else and from a system that it's not fitting clearly for everybody. So it actually brings the power back to the people to have the responsibility, but also the awareness, the knowledge of the energy, of the capacity that exists within each human being to be able to understand themselves better and heal themselves through these energies.
It's also a compromise to yourself in a sense of health. So
absolutely,
it's definitely not necessarily for everyone, because at the beginning, how can I say this in a nice way? It's like at the beginning we are somehow a victim of our own health. So this works for people who want that power, but is it a power that once you get, you cannot not do? Is the same with pollution. There is no way we do anything with pollution that would not affect us. Basically, polluting is like the same thing as putting it in our own body. And opening the quantum cage sometimes is the same. When you have those information, you cannot go back on consciousness. So if you know, and you have to deal with it consciously, you're somehow kind of an adult in a sense. Like you become like a quantum adult, like you have, because in the sense that the power of your observation will change your experiment. That's what we mean by quantum, which is very interesting, because basically within our young human race we still have this perception, because all this quantum vision is based on a very funny experiment that happened, which is the double slit experiment, and it's like that interpretation of one simple little experiment opened basically the religion of quantumness, because there is also pilot wave theory where basically the particle know before it was gonna cross the slit where it would go. So it is really because they didn't know how to interpret it at the time, that they opened the realm of quantumness so much that they have created actual possibility which through other culture science were never understood in that chronological aspect. And this is the beauty of quantum human science, is like by making our little mistakes we have opened so much that now we were able basically from what kind of resemble like the Stone Age to bring up to some higher grade of consciousness which other races cannot get there, because for some reason the misinterpretation of that experiments got other experiments to be done that happened to concur that once again, if you had different data from the start, because you would have a different observation, you would have never made those experiments. And now we are at this very new, interesting time where everything is possible in that sense, and where we will take that will really change what we experience as a society. So once again, it's not everyone that want to do this, because somehow living through that idea of that your own health, you're not responsible for it, then you kind of have like this as an obligation, and it creates a setup for you.
Finding the gem and the beauty of discovering themselves, and living, and it's a right, it's a sovereign right for each human being to be healthy. It's just it's the natural way of being healthy. So there is, once that it's being perceived and experienced, it's like an old we'd say like an old relationship that is not working anymore. It's like at the beginning you kind of don't want to leave it, but once you discover like you are better without it, you're like, actually I'm better without it, like I'm better on with having this energy that I can harness with myself, which is the most beautiful thing that I have personally experienced in my entire life is having that pure state of like energy flowing through you without any resistances. So anything else is just mental ideas that people, I think, hopefully every step by step, they can start to like trust a little bit more, open a little bit more, and allow a little bit more of this healing to be part of their lives, because that's all there is. It's actually very simple.
Yeah, in the end we do end up in a society where everyone has awakened in their own perception. So it's not a question of some people would or some people won't.
Exactly.
Like throughout the many quantum shifts that appear successively after one of another, we all end up to share that round of consciousness.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's for everyone.
Yeah. How it looks to work with us, it's actually really simple. Normally, we don't impose that somebody needs to have a QHHT session first, or that somebody needs to have a bio reading first, because they're both very like based on feeling and intuition. So somebody could say, hey, you know what, I really want to work with a QHHT session right now. So we go ahead, I prepare them, I send them all the information and all the requirements to prepare for the session, answering any questions until they feel confident to go into that space, and we arrange the date and time. And then after that session, they could choose to have a bio reading if they want to have their scan of their biologicals done to make sure everything was like properly placed, healed, and that the organs and all the body is good. If after that, so there is two things that could take place. I could ask the higher self if there is a specific treatment that they need to follow with us. In this case, it's homeopathy. If the higher self says yes,
for plants sometimes
they ask us for plants, because the background of ethnobotanics. So sometimes he recommends plants. So, but we always ask for the higher self if they feel like that would be beneficial. Sometimes they say yes. Most of the times they say yes. There's been the times that it says no, and in that case we're like, okay, so he got everything that he needed in one session. So we are not interested in dragging people into like therapy after therapy after therapy. On the contrary, we're more interested into bringing this consciousness, this awareness, so that people like have one session for the bio reading, and if they're good to go, they're good to go. I mean, they have a recording with all the wisdom from the QHHT session. If they ever feel like they need to get back into it, they could. And additional, we're preparing meditations as well to have them available for people so they can like continue on some practices and giving them some guidance in that sense.
It really depends on the people. We also have biophotonic therapies, which they work just the same way that the QHHT. It's just the QHHT, you need to do the work yourself, and you will receive this. It's done in like one session. The QHHT is like you have access to the reprogramming, so it's just code when you do this, and then it can take up to 2 to 3 weeks. That's what we've noticed for the actual brain to like reconfigure, regrow the neuron, and basically heal itself. That's for sure. For the biophotonic therapy, it takes like up to 2 months, but it's the same thing. In both cases, you receive a light code, and it's really a question of how people perceive they want to have this experiment, because in the QHHT, they're gonna be the one empowering themselves of have done it, and they cannot not done it without actually taking care of the operator, which they are. They cannot fix the actual machine without taking consideration of the operator. And in the biophotonic, it's the same, because in the end, people need to go through all those meditation, and basically they acquire those changes, which take a long time on their own, so they're not being guided actually when they're doing it, but they're reaching it, and they're receiving the electrotherapy, which guide their cells to regenerate, which they can also only do in an extreme deep state of relaxation. So they're actually very resembling themselves together. Everything that we do with quantum medicine and with biophotonic energy and with light code reprogramming, everything is really basically the same mechanism, and it's done in a different way. It's kind of based on how people they want to have this experiment with their own body, basically from the body to the mind or from the mind to the body. So it's based on people's approach, I would say.
And the soul, of course.
And the soul, and the soul. And the reading, it was just that. You can have it rather before or after. Some people, they would want to know before, because some things they just don't know, and they would want this to be added in the session, because in the session you will receive a light scan. And because the light scan depend on your capacity to be connected at the time to scan it, you will have as much as information that you have ability to connect. Totally. So the machine will scan much thing that we can actually read in a short time, and then the major thing that you would want to have that you perhaps didn't read can go in it. And usually they don't do before and after. It's possible to do before and after for basically the sake of science, if you really want to know.
Or if there is like a very a strong illness, like that is like life threatening to somebody, like some cancer, something that is like, I really need to make sure that I am well with this process, then of course we can have that.
The truth is really based on how you want to have this experience, how you feel.
For sure.
But yeah.